Okay. Good morning, colleagues.
Morning, Chairperson.
Morning. Apologies. I'm just trying to figure out where the echo is coming from. Anyway, today we are dealing with the vote on provincial treasury. It is vote 3, and this is the Standing Committee on Finance, Economic Opportunities and Tourism. My name is Deirdre Bartman. I'm the chairperson of the committee. Members, I'm not going to go through all of the rules of the committee, but as you know, all the House rules as ATC previously applies. What I'll do is I'll start with introduction of members, and then I will do introductions of the minister and the department officials, and then we're going to jump straight into the third adjustment first. We'll then do questions and answers, and then we'll jump straight into the main budget afterwards. If there are presentations, I'll allow for the department to put those up at the respective votes. Members, with that, if you could please introduce yourselves.
Good morning, Chair. Jacob van der Westhuizen.
Morning.
Voorzitter Dylan Mitchell.
Morning. Wimby, I heard you earlier, but are you not there with us anymore?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Member Wimby. I can hear you, yes.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Member
no,
Wimby.
Thank you very much. I'm also representing Honorable Ngondlo, who is
problem,
unfortunately unable to attend.
No problem. Are there any other members online?
Thank you very much.
Good morning, Chair. Melika Akabo.
Morning, member. Okay, are there any other members? Okay, if not, Member Lacker, are you online? My procedural officer here next to me, she says that you are with us, but I haven't heard your voice. Going once, going twice? Okay.
Good morning,
I know there's today as well.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning, Member Lacker. Thank you so much. Members, I do know that there is load shedding as well today, but that it's also being suspended. So it's a bit up and down today. So please bear with us. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump straight into the third presentation after the introduction by the Minister and the officials. Minister, I hand over to you.
Thank you, Chairperson. We certainly look forward to discussing and presenting our budget. We do have a short presentation available on both the orders of business. My name is David Mania, Minister of Finance and Economic Opportunities, and I'm joined by David Savage, the head official.
Thank you, Minister, and good morning, Chairperson and members of the committee. I'm joined. My name, as the Minister said, is David Savage, the head of department. I'm joined by our DDG, Ms. Jalinda Gantana, Ms. Anna-Marie Smit, and Mr. Malcolm Boyson in the chamber today, and then, of course, the full team, management team from the department online. Chair, with your permission, I'll give a very brief presentation just to orient members to the documents before them. I'll go, and then obviously we're very open to questions. I'll deal firstly with the third adjustments estimates for 2020, and then with your permission, go straight through into the 2021 estimates. Chair, for I think the presentation is just being flighted now, but I'll dive right in while we wait for it to come up. For the 2020 third adjustments estimates, the Provincial Treasury is surrendering 17.3 million rand to the PRF. This is due to cost savings, quite significant cost savings as a result of COVID-19 operational impacts, as well as significantly tightened expenditure controls that we've instituted right across the board. This does not impact on our APP deliverables because our new way of work has allowed us to keep up and on track due to our revised operating arrangements and workflows.
Apologies, HOD. I'm just going to ask that all of our colleagues on the online your mics and videos off while the HOD is just presenting, then it will prevent the echo that we are currently hearing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chair. The reductions in the estimates for 2020 are spread across compensation of employees, about 1.34 million rand reduction. This is due to resignations and retirements, and some delays in filling of critical vacant posts due to the department undertaking a comprehensive review of critical posts, and I'll speak to that a little bit later. Goods and services reductions of 10.8 million. There've been, as I mentioned, significantly reduced expenditures on areas like travel and subsistence, some training which has taken place online, and consumables due to the lockdown and our working arrangements. On the infrastructure side, there've been reductions in spending estimates due to the delay in approvals of the organizational structure for infrastructure from the Department of Public Service and Administration. We did take mitigating actions once it became apparent this would not proceed smoothly in this financial year, and we have launched the appointment process for Chief Director Infrastructure, and also the empanelment process for technical support for infrastructure financing options for the province. We have also had delayed procurement on the empanelment of technical support for municipalities. This has been mitigated somewhat by a streamlined internal focus on how we're supporting vulnerable municipalities and our staff providing direct support. And then we've also had savings due to efficiencies that we realized in the production of the Mero and the Pero, again through better alignment between the external services procured and our own internal staff. On transfers and subsidies, reductions of a little over 5 million rand. The financial recovery services grant, it was delayed because the only eligible municipality for this grant, Kanaland municipality, is disputing the validity of the intervention in court, and that process is underway, and so no allocation was made. The financial management support grant was delayed, was reduced due to the findings of phase 1 of our local government grant review process, which we talked about this time last year, which have indicated opportunities in value for money improvements. So if we just go to the next slide, this gives the table showing these reductions across the programs of the department as they are spread, and then by economic classification, which is what I've spoken to on the previous slide. So the bulk of the reductions are in program 2, sustainable resource management, because that is where a significant number of our outward-facing programs are located, and the largest program in the vote. If we move to the estimates of revenue and expenditure for 2021, we, in the course of the year, have done ongoing appraisal of our strategy relative to the provincial strategic plan and the Western Cape Recovery Plan to make sure that the department is fully aligned in its strategy and operational planning, particularly in the context of an ongoing and growing set of fiscal constraints. Obviously, in the course of the year, the Provincial Treasury has been very focused on our response to COVID-19, and that has required us to make 3 core interventions that I think members will be aware of. The first has been, if we go to the next slide, an agile, responsive, and multi-phase.
Apologies, I'm going to find out this slide now. We're jumping into the main budget.
We're jumping into the main budget, Chair.
Okay. HOD, I'm going to quickly ask for questions and answers on the third adjustment, just in the event that there are also members of the public that would like to ask on the third adjustment. And then once we've concluded that, we can jump straight into the main. Okay. Colleagues online, you have now seen the presentation that the HOD and department has so kindly provided us with. Please note that this presentation then speaks to your book that says Third Adjusted Estimates of Provincial Revenue and Expenditure 2020. And that is the budget we are currently dealing with. And I'm going to now take questions and answers on that one. And then later when we deal with the slides of the presentation of the main budget, I will take the questions on the main budget. So colleagues, if you could just put your hand up, and then I'll ask our procedural officer just to assist me with whose hands are up at the moment online. Going once. Okay, I see a hand. I think that is Member Wimby. Okay. Thank you, Member Wimby, the Member van der Westhuizen, in that order.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. I just want to get an indication there, if I got it correctly, there on the presentation, there is the 17.3 million. Is it? Can we refer to it as savings, or is it just the money that was not used? And if it's saving, can it be redistributed for other developmental projects? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Member van der Westhuizen.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Chair, Mr. Savage explained to us that some of these savings were the result of delayed advertisements and the filling of what he called critical posts. Now, in a sense, you know, the word critical wants to, in my mind, conjure up the idea that it's a position that you can't go without, at least not for too long. And perhaps if Mr. Savage would just like to explain to us, and I fully accept that from time to time, you know, you review your operations and the allocation of positions and job descriptions, etc. But how long will this process still take? And if these posts are really critical, you know, for how long have they been vacant, and what has been the solution in the meantime to ensure that the department is not hampered by lengthy vacancies? Thank you.
Thank you. I will now ask my questions if there are no other hands. Okay. HOD, could you quickly go back to the slide where you spoke about Kanaland? I just want to make sure that in my question that I get the amount correctly. You spoke about, yes, that one. You spoke about the financial recovery services grant, which is delayed by essentially Kanaland municipality because they're disputing the validity of the intervention. Now, when I read that, I am reading that the fact that Kanaland is under administration. And is that grant the full 5 million rand that Kanaland is saying, because we're disputing the administration, we don't want province to assist us, so we're not going to take the 5 million rand. Am I reading that correctly? Thank you.
Thank you for the questions. For Member Mvimbi, yes, these are savings that are returned to the Provincial Revenue Fund, and they are then redeployed in this budget towards the fight against COVID-19 directly, so that the health department is the net beneficiary. One of the things we're very aware of in the Treasury in our spending is spending across the province, and in terms of absolute provincial priorities as well. So we don't, we have, I guess, less of an incentive as the Provincial Treasury to try and retain all funds as underspending when we can voluntarily surrender the savings to enable us to redeploy those resources to the front line of the COVID-19 fight. And so that's that's effectively what's being done here.
Apologies, Member Mvimbi, if you could just put your mic off for us. Thank you so much.
Member van der Westhuizen, in terms of the critical posts, what we have done with the broader compensation cuts to the province, we have reviewed our entire program in terms of appointment and retention of staff, because that is going to be an ongoing challenge going forward. As you're aware, the Provincial Treasury is looking for quite specialized skills. And as a result, they're both hard to find, but we also experience a relatively high churn rate. The churn is actually a positive thing if you take a systemic view, because we are giving younger staff an opportunity to get exposed and work under some senior, very experienced senior leadership. But then they become very marketable. And our challenge is obviously to retain those skills so far as we can within the Western Cape for the benefit of our municipalities, other departments, and so forth. The high churn areas are particularly with respect to areas like supply chain management, and these are also the critical posts. So we already have advertised and are in the process of either shortlisting or interviewing candidates for a number of supply chain management posts and the other critical posts that have been identified in the system. Those are also to do with local government. They're to do with provincial government finance and some accounting functions as well. What the department is doing, though, and has done in the course of the critical skills review, is aligned this with its a broader talent management strategy that I'll talk about in the next section of the presentation, so that we're getting a much longer range view on how we're managing skills and talent development in the department. And we learn to live with a high churn rate, but use it to our advantage for the province as a whole, given that these are specialized skills areas. Chair, your question with relation to Kannaland. The Kannaland has been in an unstable coalition that has shifted quite dramatically in the course of this year. That's disrupted their cooperation with the intervention that is underway, and eventually led them to taking legal action to try and dispute the intervention. And obviously the province is contesting that as well. In that environment, putting in resources when there is a lack of collaboration with the administrator for financial recovery, who is deployed there on behalf of the province, makes it likely that the resources are not going to be used to optimal effect. We are also in the final stages of a process led by the Municipal Financial Recovery Services at National Treasury of revising the financial recovery plan for the municipality. So in the light of this contestation and disruption to the implementation of support and the revision to the recovery plan, the decision was taken in the department that it would be inappropriate to transfer resources in the current financial year, because it was unlikely that they would be used to optimal effect.
Thank you, HOD. I'm now going to take follow-ups, and I see there's a hand from Member van der Westhuizen. I just want to check if there are other hands as well. No, I'll ask then my follow-up question after Member van der Westhuizen. Member, you may go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I unfortunately didn't get the picture regarding the vacancies, and perhaps I should put my question then differently. Have there been any vacancies in the department over the last financial year that has been there for 6 months or longer? And if so, how many of those? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'll then ask my follow-up now as well. HOD, you've now mentioned that because Kannaland was in an unstable coalition, then they disputed the intervention because they're disputing it legally, and province is also now disputing it. And the financial recovery plan for Kannaland is being revised, and that obviously because of all of this it would be inappropriate to transfer the money. So essentially what you're telling the committee today is that because of the politics in Kanaland, that they're saying no thank you to the money because we are disputing the fact that we want to come and assist with the financial recovery within the municipality. Am I reading that correctly? Please do correct me if I'm reading that incorrectly. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm going to ask my colleague, Ms. Nadia Ismail, to respond on the question of the number of vacancies. There are some vacancies that have been there for over 6 months, absolutely, but in terms of the specific numbers, she will be able to give further detail on that. With respect to Kanaland, the municipality is not refusing the money. It's a question. I would very much imagine they would never refuse money. The question is rather on the Treasury side, do we think that this is appropriate to transfer resources into an environment where we do not have collaboration? And the stages of transferring the resources is, of course, firstly to allocate them and then to transfer them. In this case, there was no allocation made, and the decision was taken, listen, we need to be very much on the same page in terms of how we support a transition to financial sustainability in the municipality before we just put resources in there. Otherwise, it would essentially become a bailout. Just adding money to no real effect and just offsetting the hard work of addressing the financial challenges of the municipality over time. So, the resources happen in a context of both of collaboration around a clear and effective strategy, the financial recovery plan. We need to have those binding conditions in place in order to be able to say to the legislature, yes, this is an effective deployment of resources, and as the Provincial Treasury, we're not able to say that at this point. We're working very hard to get to that point, though. If I can hand over to Ms. Ismail.
Ms. Ismail, are you online?
I think I'm getting a message that she's struggling.
We see that you are online. If you can just unmute yourself.
I'm getting a message that she's struggling to unmute. So it's a technical challenge.
Okay, we are unable to unmute for you as well. So what I'm going to do then is, in the meantime, because I also see Member Kleigo's hand, so what I'll do is I'll take Member Kleigo's question and then we'll deal with Ms. Ismail's answer after that. But regarding my the answer to my question, thank you, HOD. And it's so important for there to be binding conditions when one gives money when it comes to things such as administration. Because if anything in our country that we've seen with bailouts such as SAA and Eskom is when there are no binding conditions, we sit with the possibility of load shedding whole day, every day for the next 5 years. So it cannot be bailouts in our economy. We need to be about empowerment. But with that, Member Kleigo, and then I just want, we'll check again if Ms. Ismail is able to unmute. Member, you may go ahead.
Yes, thanks very much, Chair. Mine is also on that issue of Kanaland, because earlier on I was of a strong assume that they declined the offer from government, not knowing that the provincial government. But now I've noted that now the provincial government is the one that pulled the plug when things are not going well there with that unstable coalition. Now, what I wanted to understand is that what is the rationale behind that? Because we don't want to see every time when power exchanges hands, like it happened last week, that now it's back with the coalition between the DA and the ANC, then the money would go back. And then when the relations between the DA and the ANC break down, then the money is taken away. So I just wanted to understand, is it politically motivated, the issue of pulling the plug from the grant that should be received by Kanaland? Thanks very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Member Klego. I just want to check if Ms. Ishmael, you're able to unmute yet. Okay, if not, HOD, I'll then hand over to you. If someone else is able to answer, then perhaps we should go that route. Alternatively, then perhaps it should be submitted in writing. But Minister, I see you also want to produce some input as well.
I just want to respond to the Honourable Zego. I want to assure him that the decision not to disperse funds to Kanaland is not politically motivated. We simply cannot be in a position where we are allocating funds to support a recovery plan which is not agreed to and in fact being disputed. It would be irresponsible of us to do it, and it would amount to, as the HOD has said, a bailout. But that does not mean that we are not continuing to work on revising the recovery plan, and at some point in supporting the recovery and return to financial stability in the municipality.
HOD, is there anything you'd like to add?
I will add. I will ask the CFO to come back to Member van der Westhuizen's question, and obviously we can provide further written details as well.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Minister, for that answer as well. Thank you. Any follow-up questions? Okay, I will now open up the floor for anyone from the public that is with us physically or online to ask questions on the third adjustment. I'm now speaking about the third adjustment budget, which was tabled in the House by the Minister a few days earlier. Going once? Going twice? Okay. HOD, with that, it's fine, you can let me just see that quickly. Okay. HOD, what I'm going to do is I will deal with Okay, let's jump into the main adjustment and then the committee business. Both of the third adjustment and main adjustment I'll deal at the end of the presentations and questions. Thank you. You may go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, just I had begun to remind members, I had begun my remarks on the 2020 estimates of revenue, 2021 estimates of revenue and expenditure, just reflecting on what the Provincial Treasury has been doing in terms of aligning its strategy to both the PSP and the Western Cape Recovery Plan in the context of growing fiscal constraints and the ongoing fight against the pandemic. Our core pandemic-related responses have been threefold in the Provincial Treasury. The first is the agile, responsive, multi-phase budget process that I think members are all too aware of. We've tabled more budgets this year than in a number of years, because we've had to respond very quickly to the environment as it changes around us. But we've gone beyond that into the expenditure management terrain, where we have focused on providing support to supply chain management around the pandemic and making sure that our systems across the province are both efficient and compliant. Key to that has been a central procurement advisory committee that we've formed of senior supply chain and financial management specialists in the province to guide all departments. And of course, the publication of our monthly and now quarterly as well procurement disclosure reports. And then finally, extensive financial governance support to guide both departmental and municipal responses to regulatory requirements as they've shifted through the year in response to various exemptions and so forth that have been granted by National Treasury, and severe disruptions to the audit process, which throws out a number of other processes as well in the governance cycle. Our strategic priorities as the Treasury are really fourfold. The first is around integrated provincial governance. The second is around efficient infrastructure investment. The third, effective and strategic supply chain management systems. And the fourth, around effective local government. And these strategic priorities are things that concern us as a department and that cut across the work. They're transversal in nature relative to the two main branches of the department, which are fiscal and economic services and governance and asset management. So if we go to the next slide, it just unpacks those strategic priorities for the Treasury in a little bit more detail. Integrated provincial governance, some of the key focus areas there are issues such as the Fiscal Futures project that the Minister spoke to in his budget speech this week. The strategic management of the budget process itself, which is a very complex process that runs through the year and interfaces both with departments and entities, as well as with municipalities, and of course with the national sphere. Related to this is the importance of integrated information management, effective management and oversight of public entities, improved audit processes, and the institution of integrated and combined assurance processes, so that we're tracking not just budgets, but the full public expenditure management cycle through an integrated provincial governance approach. When we look at efficient infrastructure investment, priority areas for the Treasury are around enhanced portfolio management and analysis, preparation support, as announced by the Minister in his budget speech, reforms to and enhancements to the process of construction procurement, infrastructure financing, and effective asset management. When it comes to strategic supply chain management, strategic procurement, technology, governance systems, and capacitation and development are our key focus areas. And in local governance, developing an integrated service delivery platform linked to our budget processes, integrated information management at municipal level across the PM cycle, governance improvement, vulnerability management, and an ongoing focus on, or let me say an increasing focus on infrastructure investment by municipalities. And there's some interesting developments in that space. In pursuing these priorities, the Treasury has strengthened three critical levers. If we go to the next slide, as I'd mentioned earlier, talent management is key. We operate in specialized environments where our employees have bright futures, particularly our younger ones, maybe myself not so much. And we need to invest in a systemic way to enhance that public financial management talent pipeline, not just for ourselves, but for provincial and local government in the Western Cape as a whole. And so it's not just investing in our staff capabilities and their expertise, it's also around how we are attracting people to work for the Treasury through our our external bursary programs, but also what we're doing to, once they've completed their studies, to give them work experience through our Chartered Accountants Academy and our internship and mentoring programs in the Treasury. So we are in the process and made actually some very nice progress in consolidating all of these into a single talent management strategy that is going to increasingly focus on making sure that we're providing pathways for individuals to be part of public financial management leadership in the Western Cape going forward. The second is around knowledge management, which is really home ground for the Treasury, where we are focusing on applied fiscal research to enhance policy outcomes. In an environment of growing fiscal constraint, we need to make sure right from the get-go that we are driving towards the outcomes that we need developmentally in the Western Cape. So we have a program of expenditure reviews, for example, on issues like compensation spending, but that is growing. Efforts to improve performance management systems and oversight, developing intelligence dashboards, particularly at the municipal level, where we can aggregate data that we have available and cross-correlate it to get better insights in the municipal space, and much more dedicated vulnerability management in municipalities, where we take a very regular, close look at vulnerability factors in our most vulnerable municipalities in the province, and make sure that our support is aligned to helping them manage and mitigate those risks. And then thirdly, another key lever is around digital transformation, and particularly our ICT strategy and Provincial Treasury e-vision, where we are pioneering platform development, for example, in the supply chain management space with our e-procurement system, which is an ongoing emphasis for this year. We are actively maintaining our very large legacy systems and making sure that we're able to transform them at the margin, so that they're able to provide the information and services both internally and external and in relation to each other, to provide intelligence on governance outcomes and issues for the province. Mining these data sets has been critical, for example, in our review of compensation spending in the province. It has also been absolutely central to building initiatives that we've rolled out this year. For example, the introduction of e-pay slips in the province. So it's big picture, and it's what's apparently small picture, but real efficiency improvements that we're capable of doing in this environment. We've, of course, radically expanded the platforms for online collaboration. And as the Minister had mentioned yesterday, we are looking at process automation on the back of this, including the deployment of artificial intelligence and particularly machine-based learning in some of our functions. And we're piloting that both at a vote level and in terms of some of the interfaces that we have with municipalities in terms of accounting issues in the course of this year. So it's a very exciting space for us. So those levers work across our priorities, and our priorities work across the two branches. So the challenge really is around joined up governance, joined up management in the Treasury, in the execution of the strategy. In terms of how we're funding the priorities and levers over the 21 MTEF, I will hand over to the CFO to provide a brief review of the vote, and then I'll come back and talk around some specific elements of that going forward.
Okay, as you will see that we did a comparison between the revised estimate for 2021, then as well as the medium-term estimate. So you will see that for the 21-22 financial year, so the first table gives you an indication per program. What is the estimates per program? So for program 1 is 55,374 million. Sustainable resource management 139,227, asset management 73,935 million, financial governance 51 million. In total, the budget for the 21-22 financial year is 319,609. You will see there's a bit of an increase between the revised estimate and the 21-22 financial year, and just a slight decrease for 22-23 because of the reduction in the baseline allocation, and then again a slight increase in the 23-24 financial year. Going down to the next table, it gives you an indication on economic classification. You will see compensation of employees, and as indicated in the next slide, COE is 62% of our budget is, you can go up slide, 62% of our budget is COE, because we've got quite we need the human resources to be able to achieve our priorities. As I've indicated, there's a 3.7% increase over the MTEF per year. So you see it's a slight increase in COE over the MTEF period. I think the HOD has spoken about our historical challenge with the high churn rates, as well as not be able to get the skilled staff complement, and that is then linked to our talent management strategy to ensure that we get the right people for the job. And indicated that we've got a COE committee, and the COE committee critically looked at all of our vacancies and identified the critical posts that could be funded within the 2021 MTEF period, and 6 of these positions are within the senior management cadre. The critical posts are underway, for example, the CD infrastructure, as well as the SEM analysts. Just to give you an indication, in most of the post that was identified as critical, we have already started the recruitment and selection process, and it's far in the process. We've also indicated that 10%, so about 32 posts, could not be funded within our allocation. That is mainly within our support services, research analyst, LG coordinators and analysts, some of our economist posts, cash flow analyst, the public PPP unit, system controllers, and logos post. But I think we have really identified those that are critical, and unfortunately we're not able to fund the 32 posts. And we'll also see that we have the total establishment is 337 posts, just giving an indication, 32 posts as unfunded, and then the funded establishment is 305 posts. This is for the for the vote. Then on the next slide, please, Nadia, if I maybe just can go.
If I can just come in there, we do have information now from Ms. Ismail just by message in terms of Member van der Westhuizen's question around those posts that have been subject to delays in recruitment, and they were delayed by the assessment of criticality. And the recruitment processes that are underway, as the CFO have indicated, are for an infrastructure analyst, 2 systems controllers, a systems manager, 2 economists, 2 local government revenue and expenditure specialists, and provisioning, and one provisioning and asset management post in Program 1, where we've been unable to find the skills through the conventional recruitment processes. It then shifts to headhunting, which is underway in some of those positions as well.
To the next slide. So we spoke about the COE. So the next slide just gives you an indication of the business.
Ms. Smith, I'm just going to ask that you put your mic on, please.
Sorry. The next slide just gives you an indication on our goods and services budget, and then also linked to the priorities that the HOD has spoken about. For example, integrated financial governance. The goods and services input to that is the support for the PERO, the advisory services for the expenditure reviews and the fiscal future research, the review of the gambling policy, and then efficient infrastructure development. We made provision for the technical support panel to assist with the appraisals and the review of the infrastructure financing options. On supply chain management, we made provision for the SEM reform implementation, the EPS, the supplier evidence bank, as well as the walk-in centre. Efficient local governance is the support to the MERO, the training of municipal officials, the subscription to the Municipal Sustainability Index, municipal vulnerability support, internal audit, quality assessment reviews. So just an indication on linking our budget to the strategy or the priorities, and giving an indication on what are the goods and services inputs to those priorities, as the HOD has alluded to. Going to the next slide. For that, this is also just giving you an indication of the goods and services input to different levers. For example, knowledge management, a collaborative advisory network for applied fiscal research with regards to the talent management, e-learning, interns, the CAA bursaries, as well as then bursaries to specific staff, digital transformation, artificial intelligence, machine learning developments, pilot developments in municipality, audit queries, and PT. So I think just to give you an indication, the goods and services inputs to finance the specific levers. Next slide. And I think just the slides just gives what do we? Okay.
Thank you, CFO. The transfers and subsidies are a key element of our strategy, and last year we indicated that we were undertaking a review of local government grants in particular, which has proceeded even in the lockdown environment, which has been relatively challenging. Phase 1 of that review has indicated that there are significant opportunities for consolidation and redesign of grants across the provincial government to make sure that they are not just funding inputs, but targeting outputs and intermediate outcomes. And in doing so, we can improve the coordination of the supply of support and respond to really strategic gaps that are being faced by municipalities. But importantly, and in response to municipal concerns, also blend financial with non-financial support. Now, this is often very important in the case of vulnerable municipalities, to just give them additional resources and say, you're on your own. And they still have to traverse supply chain management, contract management processes, might end up placing a greater burden on them and not really alleviating the critical gap that they're facing. And so better blending of financial with actual warm body non-financial support is what is required. So we are now progressively adjusting our transfer framework for that alignment within a more programmatic and output to outcome level design. And then finally, I think on transfers, we can't not emphasize there is a significant transfer on the vote to the Western Cape Gambling and Racing Board. But if we go to the next slide, it is important to note that even while we adjust our transfer framework, overall support to local governments is expanding over the MTEF. So we are both proportionally, even as our overall vote grows at the margin, we're making sure that local government grows as well. Our combined support to local government grows as well. We may adjust the relative allocations, particularly between goods and services and transfers in the vote, but we are looking to extract ever greater value for money around the combined support to local government as part of our effective local government priority for the department. And so that slide just shows that growth over time across the various teams that collaborate on the local government agenda in the provincial treasury. There are, of course, if we go to the next slide, specific and exclusively appropriated priority allocations that support municipalities as well, and they remain there in terms of compensation of employees, goods and services, and the empanelment of specialized technical support that municipalities are looking for that they can't obtain themselves, the financial recovery services grant, and the other grants as well. I thought if we just go to the next slide, just to reflect on our integrated talent management expenditures over the MTEF, also growing in terms of supporting our integrated talent management strategy, both in terms of the capacity building activities and the Chartered Accountants Academy, but also our bursary programs and other training and development activities. And I think we will end there, Chair, and are open, of course, to all and every question.
Thank you so much, members. As the previous round, we're going to follow the same setup. So I will take questions now. Going once. Member van der Westhuizen, I see your hand. Are there any other hands? Member Mvimbi, I see your hand. Okay, in that order then. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Mr. Savage. And Mr. Savage, I want to refer to your last slide. You informed us last year, and it made perfectly sense, that you would not be in a position to assist interns and new staff with the training that you normally do as a department, because obviously with isolation and working from home, you just don't have that same kind of support and interaction with new staff that you need to train them and to be able to then also put them to good use for the department. I'm therefore quite thrilled by the fact that you again increased your allocation of money that you would be making available for bursaries. Now, my question is just regarding the bursaries. Many years ago, many students, deserving students, academically deserving students, were able to study with government bursaries, which then expected of them, in terms of a contractual arrangement, to then work for government for the same number of years that they've been supported financially to complete tertiary studies. And my question therefore is this the nature of the financial support that you make available? Do you therefore have a bursary scheme? Because we also know that bursaries and the funding of tertiary education is very much in the news now. And there's a growing concern about what is normally known as the missing middle, and that some of those students might be assisted by the Western Cape Provincial Treasury with funding towards their studies, but then Treasury would be benefiting in the future once they've completed their studies. Is there that same contractual agreement where you must work a year for a year in that regard? And then, Chair, I just want to say thank you very much. I didn't preempt the slides on the vacancies, but I really appreciate the department informing us about that. And Chair, at the end of the meeting, I would like us to consider a resolution in this regard as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Member van der Westhuizen. Member Mvimbi.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Just as in relation, I think it was the second or the third last slide, where I think the HOD mentioned something to the effect that they do sometimes use or mention something to the effect about headhunting. I just want to know whether is this are there instances where the provincial government has to headhunt, and is it also part of the provincial government policy? And if there have been instances of headhunting, maybe are there any examples that we can be given of where such a practice has been done? Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you. Are there any other hands? Okay, I'll throw mine in now as well then. I have one comment and I guess two questions. The first comment is thank you so much for indicating the fact that grants to municipalities, the criteria is being reviewed, because, and it really needs to be, there cannot be a grant if there's no binding contract or document that says how such a grant will be monitored and measured. Like has been said previously, we We cannot become a country where we give everyone and money and bailouts, but then they do not come with the criteria that says, yes, we agree with you. This is how we will be measured. This is how we will assess our performance. So thank you so much for that. In terms of supply chain management, and I'm going to refer to pages 89 to 90, as well as pages 106 to 108 of the budget book within vote 3. And this also refers to the slide that you put up regarding artificial intelligence, as well as the e-procurement solution. And we've also had a previous briefing a year and a half approximately ago on the supply chain management system. And I wanted to find out the AI and MLB deployment. I don't know what the MLB part stands for, but that particular deployment, you indicated that there will be a tech pilot in municipality. What are the details of this pilot that was referred to in the slides? And in the budget book, it obviously speaks to wanting to put more money towards technology within the supply chain management systems. And with this, one is obviously attempting to go as digital as possible. And one of the things you've mentioned was, for example, the e-payslip system, which is wonderful and innovative in terms of government. But when it comes to the digital revolution, government as a whole, whether you're speaking about local, provincial, or national government, are essentially almost two digital industrial revolutions behind the private sector. So while it is wonderful, yes, that we're incorporating e-payslips, what I would like to know is what is the possibility of using blockchain technology within the supply chain management system? And the same way where we essentially pulled the weakest link within the digital economy during COVID towards us when we started with taking physical meetings online for the majority of COVID. What is the possibility of pulling the provincial government and local government digital systems to 2021? Because while we are in the year 2021, our digital systems are not. And not only do we need to have our digital systems within the context of the 2021 digital revolution. I'm not talking about the fifth industrial revolution that the president is speaking about. That is old news. It's old news. I'm talking about when it comes to the revolution within the private sector in terms of digital technology. How do we get us into 2021? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the questions. Member van der Westhuizen, with respect to the bursary program, yes, there is a work back requirement associated with bursaries from the provincial treasury. We have a number of bursaries, both where people are still studying, but also where previous bursary holders are now with us, and they really most often join us in our Chartered Accountants Academy, which is one of our flagship programs, and has worked very, very well in terms of giving graduates a real jump start. So there is a natural fit there, which is why we're now managing this as an integrated talent management strategy. But is that work back requirement? Absolutely. I think with respect to the vacancies and how we manage that, the biggest challenge and why we've gone towards this integrated talent management strategy is that in our environment, we accept we need to live with a high rate of churn, but we can't live anymore with a high vacancy rate. And so, we've just got to accept things for what they are. We get talented, skilled people. We want to attract them, but we've also got to be able to let them go. And hopefully they come back at a later stage of their career and so forth. So that's the integrated approach. It's about living with churn, but not with high vacancy rates. And that's been a challenge. Member Mvimbi, headhunting is part of the recruitment process. It's a stage of the recruitment process that's part of provincial government policy. Once one has the open recruitment process and a suitable candidate is not found, for appointment through that process, then it is possible to move to a headhunting process. That often happens once there's been essentially a failure of that. It happens once there's been a failure of the first round of the process. We do, because of the skills environment that we use in the Provincial Treasury, use that. And as we've indicated, there are a number of posts that are currently, I think, particularly in the supply chain environment, that are currently being headhunted because we've been unable through the open recruitment process to find people. So in headhunting, obviously that still is required to go through the interview and assessment processes. That's not excluded. There's still a panel. It's not just a question of saying, you know, here's the person. In fact, what would, and they're just naturally in the door. It would be very typically headhunting of additional people to a shortlist process. So not just one person. It will be headhunting a number of people and asking them to join a shortlist process. They are then subject to the same interview and assessment process so that there remains a degree of competition for the position, and there's of course a regulated panel assessment and approval process that is then followed. So it is well regulated. I think it's inevitable in the environment that we work in because we're competing for skills and often with the private sector directly in some of our functions. The ICT, ICT would be another area that we would very typically headhunt in, and then in aspects of economic services, particularly at a senior level. Member Bartman, thank you for your comments on the grant framework. Yes, I think we are very keen to continue with the grant review process. We really have to leverage impact, not just input from grants, and we need to make sure that our resources are real additionality, that they don't displace municipal spending in that environment. So there are a range of criteria that you need to assess in putting a grant in place, and you need to use the rules of the grant, the conditionalities associated with it, to make sure that you protect the additionality and the impact of the spending. With respect to, I'm very pleased, and online behind the mute, there's a lot of cheering on your question on what we are doing in the artificial intelligence space. There are huge opportunities. Our team is extremely excited about this. I'm not going to try and speak on their behalf because they would kill me for it. I'm going to ask, I think, Ms. Gantana to lead in, because it's really her team that's doing a lot of the work around this, but it's both in the supply chain management space and it's also in financial governance and accounting. And I'm sure they'll all want to come in that respect as well. But we call it digital transformation because I think we really understand that we're not ahead of the curve here as government. Our systems are not designed to be ahead of the curve. They're designed to maintain stability. So we're operating some very, very legacy systems, and how we engineer a radical transformation in the shortest possible space of time needs to work with what we have as the first instance. And what we have first and foremost in the Provincial Treasury is extremely skilled managers. And they need to work with the tools at their disposal. We need to enable them to make the breakthroughs. I mentioned the e-pay slips not because we don't accept that it's a small thing, but it was a very good learning experience of how difficult it was to get basic functionality, basic changes in place. But we could do it, and it was a great learning experience for us in that respect. But Ms. Gantana, I think she'll lead in and let her team talk to these areas.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members, and thank you very much. I think I want to take my cue from where the HOD left off, because I was going to start with the fact that we have a legacy system, and whatever we do within the space obviously need to tie in with that. And so we need to to, that is the one issue. And then the second issue is the importance of us being able to use technology, given the fact that the fiscus is shrinking, but we are still required to do even more in terms of the support, whether it is to provincial departments or to local government. And therefore the need to actually go into the space of artificial intelligence and machine learning, and also some of the innovative work, especially on the e-procurement, but overall in terms of the strategy where we're heading in terms of SEM, to try and explore these avenues. I obviously have on the platform both Mr. Aziz Harden, who's going to be able to speak to the artificial intelligence, as well as Ms. Nadia Ibrahim, and they will then speak to the e-procurement and provide the committee with a little bit more detail. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. It's Aziz Hardin speaking, and I'm speaking on behalf of Program 4 within Provincial Treasury, and specifically in the governance space. Thank you, Member Barnard, for the question around artificial intelligence. Provincial Treasury has been successful in sourcing a service provider where we are able to technically assist our municipalities. We're starting with municipalities, but we are able to technically assist the municipalities with any issues around the audit time. During an audit, we field more than 1,000 queries that ultimately lands up in the management reports and ultimately in the audit outcomes. Now, the current process that we follow is we receive email queries, and that takes a little bit of time in the system to respond. And at many instances, either the municipality will be late in responding to the Auditor General, or the Provincial Treasury will require much more time in terms of the research that needs to go into a query. The current system, and it's a service that we've purchased, is a municipality will be allowed to load a question onto a web portal. With the intelligence or with the information that's sitting in the web portal, the service provider or the service that is provided now is, let's say you have a question on supply chain preferential procurement. The robotics in the system will say, in the past, over 30 municipalities over the last 5 years, these are all the questions that has been related to preferential procurement. Look to see if your question is similar to something that has been responded to by Treasury in the past. If not, then the system will allow the query to be routed to the correct person within Provincial Treasury. Now that cuts down a lot of the research time, as well as it cuts down the amount of time that we need to take to respond to a municipality. But note also, this is the start of the journey, because what we have identified is that the systems has so much more functionality. And I say that we've purchased a system, a service and not a system, because if Provincial Treasury had to create this system on their own, the amount or the cost that would be involved in creating this system, both in finances as well as in manpower, it would probably exceed the current 300 million that we have allocated to us. That's on artificial intelligence. And when it comes to MBL, which is machine-based learning, again, Provincial Treasury over the last number of months have been scouring the market, and we found a service where we are able to employ continuous auditing on our transactions. And that's excluding the audit done by the Auditor General. What I mean by continuous auditing is, as and when transactions are entered into, it goes into the service provider system. That every single transaction, and this is 100% of the transactions of Provincial Treasury, would then go through 28 doors of control. The machine would then be able to tell us, on transaction 10, it didn't pass 2 or 3 doors, go and look at it because it's a bit more risky. What this allows us to do is, by looking at 100% of the population, we can focus attention to only those issues that are risky for Provincial Treasury. We're starting with Provincial Treasury, and the idea is to roll this out. If it works, We're working on evidence-based practices. If it works as it's designed, then we're looking to deploying it to the rest of the Western Cape government. That would allow us to look at 100% of the population and not give you a assurance on a population or a sample of the transactions entered into by government. The second part of machine learning is where we have 100% of the transactions in the system would be able to now project if revenue in provincial treasury is, let's say, 10 million. In the past, the trend every year was a certain amount. We can expect the next year, based on historical trends, it's going to be 11 million. It's just projecting what a possible future budget could be looking like, and that allows management to make decisions around where critical items are and where we possibly can move around items to better service our clients. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. If I may take you through the supply chain intervention. So on the supply chain side, I think one of our most critical problems is the fact that we don't have a system. So in the legacy systems itself, they're very purely financial. So over the years, we have looked at an e-procurement model that was based for quotation process over the last 15 to 20 years that the province has evolved over time. But going forward, what we found it is critical to have line of sight and to attach your expenditure and your commitments in process, in flight, in an automated system to be able to do the analytics and the value add and the value proposition considerations that we take into account within a procurement process, particularly on the provincial treasury side, because it would link to the budget allocations, it would link to value for money, it would be linking to questions of performance and service delivery that we consider in the process. So what we have done over the years is to evolve this, and we've now taken this in-house and developing that. I think the limitation was the promise of the IFMS, which held us back a little bit in terms of what we could do and the potential to evolve our current systems further. However, in the current year, we are now looking at what we can in the interim actually develop and build on in the current system, particularly the linkages to what would be sitting in a financial and a payment system. So technically, you're sitting with 3 different alternative systems in the province, but also in terms of the more specific health commodities or the infrastructure commodities or more particularly pharmaceuticals, having very different systems that they do provisioning from. So one of the key issues is how do we bring this together? So the e-procurement system, looking at goods and services, higher value purchasing is one of the things that could bring all of this in an automated space. The second aspect is around procurement planning. So how do we begin to link the budget to the actual purchasing models that are there in the province? And so having line of sight from the point that the budget is allocated and prior to the budget being allocated as well, how do you look at planning and demand management and bringing that to the fore and linking that with the budget that is allocated, and then further linking to the purchasing aspects and to the final performance of that expenditure. And what I'm saying is actually, because it's fragmented across different systems, the important thing that we're doing in the supply chain is using a business intelligence model, which not necessarily is in the budget and what you've seen today as well, but it's something that happens at the back end with the support of our CEI components within the province, and where we use a BI technology model to bring the information together. A lot of that is in some of the work that we do in terms of reporting, the PDR being one of them, the National Treasury reporting on COVID-19 that we have produced over the period begins to link to that kind of model. But what we're working with and what we find very exciting in the new financial year as well is how do we begin to look at the non-financial information sets, and a similar kind of conversation that Aziz had in terms of how do we look at gaps, how do we look at things that inform us about key issues within the procurement environment that we need to focus on. And that also is linked to our issue management system that we're using, as well as the eGap tool. in terms of what departments complete in terms of their governance requirement. So pulling all of this together, that gives us line of sight in the Treasury, so that we can focus on key issues that bug our departments, that suppliers are struggling with, and we can hone into that to look at those specific interventions that we may have in time and place. So that's just in a nutshell. I think there's a more technical discussion on that, but that is very generically in layman's terms what the systems are all about.
So, Chair, I would describe our work here as, in a mass transaction environment, mass transaction systems, focusing really on automating alignment of large data sets to enable a next round of an analysis. And what the team is doing, and they do it quietly because it is experimental, a lot of their work. So they say very often to me, we need a sandbox to be able to test these things rather than to kind of commit to deliverables on them. Is working at sort of incrementally rolling out technologies and testing what can work on our legacy systems. But we do have, this is a sample of what's going on. We've got a sort of crack data teams, both in the strategic and interlinked financial services team led by Mr. Mazomba, which focuses on these legacy systems and how we can innovate with them, that Ms. Ibrahim was talking to, and then also in program 2 are led by Mr. Paul Pinar, are a big data team as well, data management team as well, that deals with more budget data, and they come together in a nerve center that really leads the reform program in the Treasury. That in turn is linked to the work of CEI, because clearly these are big systems that are province-wide, and so the Center for E-Innovation is a key partner in the process. I will not go so far, though, to say, in response to your question, where we're deploying blockchain, we're not there yet. I think we would need more time to explore the possibilities in that respect. So, but thank you very much for the question. I think you can see the level of interest that sparks in terms of the work of the department at a practical level.
Thank you. I'll ask my follow-ups now. I just want to quickly check with the members. Members, do you have any follow-up questions? Going once, going twice. Okay, so I'm on the floor then. Firstly, HOD, I was laughing at you when you used the word sandbox, because it's a very American thing that's been used everywhere now, where everyone is speaking about the sandbox, and we're playing the sandbox, and we're experimenting in the sandbox. And my partner was also on a meeting of some sort, and I just heard through the doors when you're doing your Skypes at home, like the sandbox this and the sandbox that. And we must also just speak in simple terms. Sometimes the terms we use for things we do all the time are just that. But firstly, in terms of the legacy systems, I know that a lot of the ICT and AI are trying to be done in terms of the legacy systems, but are the legacy systems not holding you back? Because the term legacy, when you try to get a legacy or create a legacy or leave behind a legacy, it's also one of the reasons why we sit with problems such as climate change. Everyone wants to leave behind a legacy, so you leave something behind, and we then end up over years of time, over decades, over centuries, you sit with a bigger problem. And yes, while infrastructure is important, obviously, and legacy is quite important as well, because you'll see in business, a legacy is always something referred to. But the legacy can also make you less agile. So is the system holding you back? Given that you're experimenting with the system, the new incorporations at the moment, how long before you more or less know whether you would like to roll it out to the rest of the Western Cape departments and entities? Like, when do we expect, okay, we feel more or less our experiment has now been successful? And in terms of using the programs, how can we use the current technology then, if we don't have the newer versions yet, for establishing value within the transactions. Because when it comes to blockchain, I know we're not there yet. With blockchain, we are essentially saying everyone in this room agrees that what we are selling is worth selling. And everyone in this room then agrees that what we are buying is worth buying and there's value attached to it. I know I'm simplifying it a lot, and a lot of people might, be like, oh my gosh, he's just simplifying it too much. But essentially that is how we can interpret blockchain. So how are we able to establish the value in our transactions within the current systems? How are we going to use our current systems to benefit small and medium businesses and informal businesses more compared to big business? And when you see the smaller businesses register on the system to say, we would like to work with government, we would like to put our details on the system, how are you then able to identify younger businesses in terms of the age of the business, as well as businesses where there are younger people running those businesses, so that you can say, okay, these businesses might need more capacity building in terms to ensure that they get their details on the system correctly, that they write the documents correctly so that they're not automatically thrown out when it comes to things like contracts, and so that they are able to be more competitive compared to those bigger businesses that are also currently on the system. Yes. I'm going to ask again if there are any other follow-up questions before I hand over. Okay, I see no hands. HOD, those are the follow-up questions then.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, legacy systems inevitably hold back innovation and change. And I think it's been recognized in government that our big legacy systems, Persal, BAS, so forth, are a constraint and do need replacement through an integrated financial management system. The way in which that has proceeded at national level has been patchy and slow. And so we have taken a decision that we are going to use the benefits of those legacy systems, which, let's not deny, they do have benefits. They're a huge repository of data. They are stable and they are broadly functional, which are things that you don't always get with a new system. To imagine if payroll were to be unstable. But we are going to evergreen those systems by trying to build modular complements to them in particular areas that allow them to at least proceed with a pace of change. But they do hold us back. And the best example of that is not looking at those systems themselves, but at looking how quickly we've been able to proceed with e-procurement based on the development of our own platform. In that respect, which we've in-housed. I think you're absolutely right in terms of your closing remarks, in terms of the possibilities that platform offers to us, and that's actually embedded in our supply chain management strategy. So the team will talk about strategic commodity-based sourcing, the importance of data and so forth. At a transactional level, what that really looks like is introducing prospects not only for easy entry into the platform, but for automated reverse auctioning procurement processes, where we can rapidly clear the market in real time for standardized commodity items. So these are known possibilities that we are progressively putting the building blocks in place for on the e-procurement system, because we have greater span of control on that system. We're not held back by the legacy systems. In terms of your question though on rollout, when are we able to roll out the pilots? I can hear my team saying it's too early to tell. And the reason for that is, and I support them in that respect, because I really do believe they need the space to innovate freely and then to assess the risks of what they've learned before committing to some kind of broader scale rollout. Pilots, by their very nature, are limited in scope and scale. And so there are a bunch of assumptions that are built into them that you don't try and test during the pilot themselves. So a successful pilot requires you to then stand back and say, what are those assumptions that we haven't covered in the course of this pilot before we go into a major rollout? So Mr. Hadin spoke about the pilot that we're doing on 100% auditing, continuous auditing in the Treasury environment. Well, that's got some inbuilt assumptions around the nature of the transactions that the Treasury undertakes. Now, we're not testing the transactions that the Treasury doesn't undertake, though. And so I think that's why they're saying, give us time. They're not slowing down, but they're saying, give us time without without expectation that we may miss a target, because it's too early to tell at this point. So my drive from the management level is to say, do I have the commitment and enthusiasm to keep testing and piloting, rather to say, oh no, you must be ready for a full-scale rollout by 1 April 2022, because then we run the risk of a failed wider scale deployment. Let me just ask Ms. Gantana, because I learn all of this from them.
HOD, you're doing a sterling job. Just to add, Chair, I think very importantly, every department service delivery model also differs. So obviously when you pilot, and even if we take a department like the Provincial Treasury, which could be fairly straightforward, but the minute you move into a Department of Public Works, the Department of Health, any other department with a different service delivery model, with where there is almost sub or units, cost units, one would need to look at that and then build it into whatever solution that we bringing forward to departments. So just to echo the sentiments expressed by the HOD.
Thank you, Jolandi. So we try to keep the cat out of the sandbox.
Thank you so much, and I'm very excited, and I hope that you will complete the pilot sooner rather than later without expectations to a deadline. And I'll say something that I've said to the Premier previously before. Government needs to be like a delivery app, like your Ubers and your Mr. Delivery, and government services needs to be essentially, you are able to go onto your phone, you're able to order the pizza or the service delivery thing that you want, whether it is putting in a document for a tender or whether it is asking for a permit of some sort. And you should be able to go through the questions in your app where it asks you, are you asking for development? Are you asking for it in education? Are you asking for it in health? And by the end of you ordering your government service, you should have an estimated time of delivery. You should know who the person assigned is, who is going to assist you if there's any problems in the app. You should know more or less that you have applied for the correct thing, and the app should not allow you to apply if you have not filled in all the correct information. You should be able to upload your documentation, and if your documentation is incorrect, the officials must be able to be like to you, we are contacting you on the app, we are letting you know, thank you for your application, can you please just clarify this document or take a picture of this ID document a bit clearer for us. And that is how government services should be able to bring service delivery closer to the people. No one wants to stand in the long line for anything, nothing. People want to live their lives, people want to love their families, people want to spend their time with their children and have beautiful family moments. No one wants to stand in a long line for a driver's license. That is just simply how it is. So I definitely support the efforts that you're doing at the moment, and I'm looking forward to what you come up with. Colleagues, are there any last follow-up questions before I open to the public? If none, I will open to the public now for any questions to the Provincial Treasury. Going once. Going twice. If none, with that, we are then done with the presentation on vote 3. Minister and department, thank you so much for being here with us today. and for even going as far as creating extra information in terms of a presentation for the committee, which is not usually needed, but it's always appreciated. With that, we will excuse you so that we can continue with committee business. But please know there is coffee and tea and refreshments outside, which has been organized given that we were in a hybrid committee today. Thank you so much. With that, colleagues, I'm going to jump straight in while we excuse our minister and officials. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the committee business of the third adjustment. Yes. So, members, we are now then dealing with the draft committee report of the third adjustment budget. I would now ask members for their comments, views, and or views regarding supporting or objecting and so on regarding the third adjustment. I will take hands now. Member van der Westhuizen, I see your hand.
Thank you, Chair. I propose that we... Sorry, it seems to be quite an echo there now.
I'll put my mic off quickly.
Chair, I want to propose that we support Bill B3 of 2021. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Member Mitchell's hand.
Thank you, Chair. I support the proposal made by Honourable van der Westhuizen to support.
Thank you so much. I see Member Mvimbi's hand.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Just before going into the either supporting or not supporting the budget, Chairperson, just wanted to check because one of the questions I've asked from the Treasury was that there's a savings of 17.3 million. I just want to now start dealing with the content of the report before saying that we support or not supporting. That there's a savings. Is there no way that as the committee we can propose that? Because when I asked the question, they said, look, some of the money is going to be used towards COVID-19 relief. Like we know there's quite a lot of money already that has been put aside for issues of attending to COVID-19 challenges. Is there no way that some of this money can also be used towards addressing the issues of small business? And we, as the committee, just say categorically that some of the money be utilized towards addressing the challenges of small business in the coming in the readjustment of the budget. That's just a question.
Thank you, Member Mvimbi. Regarding your previous question on the savings, to my knowledge, because I wrote in my notebook that the question was answered when the HOD spoke about the savings and sending it over to the priorities of the main budget, so you will likely see it in the main budget. However, we are dealing just simply with whether we agree with the vote or not. And if you would like information on where the rollover of the savings go to, perhaps we can put those in our resolutions of the committee. But those are still upcoming. Would you be okay with that, Member Mvimbi?
No, that's fine. That's what I'm saying. In the meantime, I would like to reserve my support for the budget.
Could you just repeat that quickly, Member Mvimbi, because you're breaking up a little bit?
Okay, I'm saying in the meantime, Chairperson would like to reserve supporting or not supporting the proposed adjustment.
No problem. Thank you, Member Mvimbi. Are there any other hands? Okay, then let's quickly, if Ms. Kluter can just type that in for us quickly. Okay, let's just take the words insert part name out quickly there. And then after minority view 2, you can write to reserve its view on the vote. Because member Vimbi requested to reserve the view. Okay, stop. Let's see quickly. Okay, members, I'm going to now read out the draft committee report. Let's see quickly. Yes, we just take the highlighting out quickly. Oh, okay. Yes, it's better if I read it from this side. Okay. I'm going to now read the draft committee report. Draft report of the Standing Committee on Finance, Economic Opportunities and Tourism on Vote 3, Provincial Treasury in the schedule to the Western Cape 3rd Adjustments Appropriations Bill B3-2021 dated 18 March 2021. The Standing Committee on Finance, Economic Opportunities and Tourism reports that it has concluded its deliberations on Vote 3, Provincial Treasury, in the schedule to the Western Cape 3rd Adjustments Appropriations Bill B3-2021, referred to the committee in terms of Standing Rule 188, and that it supports the vote referred to it. In terms of, apologies, can we just take if there's a minority view out so that I can read the rest? And just say minority view there, perfect. Minority view. In terms of Standing Rule 90, the African National Congress expressed its minority view to reserve its view on the vote. Members, are you happy with the draft committee report? Could we have mover for the adoption thereof, if you're happy? Member van der Westhuizen, I see your hand.
Chair, I've moved that the report be adopted.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for the report? I see both Member Mvimbi and Member Mitchell's hand. Member Mvimbi, I'll go with you first.
Support.
Thank you. Okay, the report is so then adopted. Thank you so much. Members, we will then move on to the main budget. We will deal with the resolutions all at the same time at the end, members. Okay, so we're going to do the main budget. If I could get inputs and or views on the main vote 3 of the main budget. Member Mitchell, I see your hand.
Thank you, Chair. Are you tabling the report or the proposed report for adoption?
So we adopted the report of how we expressed our vote on the 3rd budget. So that is now complete and adopted.
Okay.
Thank you so much. And we're now at the main budget. With vote 3, if there are any inputs and or views on vote 3, Member van der Westhuizen and then Member Vimbi.
Thank you, Chair. I propose that we support Bill B4 of 2021.
Thank you, Member van der Westhuizen. Are there any other hands? Okay, the hands all went down now. Okay, Member Mitchell.
I support Honourable van der Westhuizen's proposal.
Thank you so much. Okay, I see another hand goes up. Member Mvimbi.
Yes, Chairperson, just the same like the previous report, will reserve our support for the bill for now.
No problem. Okay, let's then put the draft up and then we can quickly. Okay, Ms. Klutter, let's quickly just edit this particular one. I know that there is also time set aside next week for the adoption of the reports, but given that we are aimed to sit until 1 o'clock today, I think we can quickly just edit the document and put it before the members with the information in it. Okay, let's just check, is the bill correct? Is it B4? Okay, Let's see.
Yes,
there.
Chairperson.
Okay, it is B4 then. Okay. Let's just put highlight there by the vote and highlight by the minority view. Okay, no, you're correct. You're correct. I apologize. You're correct. Okay, I'm gonna then read it out. Okay, thank you so much. Sorry. Let's see it quickly. Okay. Draft report of the Standing Committee on Finance, Economic Opportunities and Tourism on Vote 3, Provincial Treasury, in the schedule to the Western Cape Appropriations Bill 4/2021, dated 18 March 2021. Standing Committee on Finance, Economic Opportunities and Tourism reports that it has concluded its deliberations on Vote 3, Provincial Treasury, in the schedule to the Western Cape Appropriation Bill B4/2021, referred to the committee in terms of Standing Rule 188, and that it supports the vote referred to it. Minority view, in terms of Standing Rule 90, the African National Congress expressed its minority view to reserve its view on the vote. Members, are you happy with the report? May I have a mover? But then we would have to take the words draft just out. Member Mitchell, I see your hand.
I'm happy and I propose that we adopt.
Thank you. Member van der Westhuizen, I see your hand.
I support the adoption of the report.
Thank you so much. And with that, this report is then also so adopted. Okay. And with that, the respective votes are obviously also so tabled, just so that everyone is just clear on that. Members, we're now going to move on to resolutions and actions. I have some feedback as well for the committee, but I'll first start with any resolutions. Member Mitchell, I see your hand. Okay.
Apologies, as an old hand.
No problem. Member Vimbi, do you want to bring your resolution in now? The one that you spoke about? Yes.
Yes,
okay.
Chairperson. Look, as I've indicated, Chairperson, that in view of the saving that will be incurred or the money that might not be utilized in view of other challenges we have during the pandemic period, I think it may just only be correct if we can use some of the money. We don't necessarily have to use all of the money towards assisting small and micro medium enterprises in view of the economic challenges that has actually been exposed by the pandemic. I just think that it will only be good if we can allocate some of the money towards that.
Thank you, Member Mvimbi. I'm going to quickly take the liberty to paraphrase for you, if possible, and then you can tell me whether you agree with me or not. I think perhaps it might be better if we phrase the first part of your question as requesting in writing how the savings from the third adjustment budget will be incorporated within the main budget of 2021 from this particular vote. And then my suggestion then for your second part of your question is perhaps how will the current main budget assist small businesses with COVID relief? Would you be okay with such paraphrasing, perhaps, Member Vimbi?
Look, the second part, I would really like it to be clear that it's not for COVID relief, but it's small businesses for purposes of economic development.
Okay, so how about we paraphrase the second resolution then as how will small businesses then be supported within the main 2021 budget with economic development? Would that be a correct paraphrasing?
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, members, are you happy with those two resolutions? If none, then I'll take Member van der Westhuizen's hand.
Chair, I agree with that. Can I move on to a new resolution?
Yes, you may, Member van der Westhuizen.
Chair, I would like to propose that for all vacancies in funded posts in this provincial treasury, vacancies that were positions that were vacant for 6 months or more, that we get a list of those positions, when they became vacant, when the position was advertised, what the result of the advertisement was, and whether and when they then went out on a headhunting exercise, and lastly, when the position was eventually filled, if at all.
Thank you so much. Any objections to that resolution? If none, then members, I just have a little bit of feedback for you. If I can just get the page quickly. Okay, so members, as you may know, that we obviously recently attended the Africa Energy Indaba, and they have extended the viewing of the sessions until the 26th of March 2021. So members do have time to catch up with the respective sessions. And the reason they've also extended it is because our procedural officer informed them, obviously, that, you know, we need to know and have the correct deadline for when members are able to catch up with the sessions, because members, there are obviously financial implications if we do not complete the sessions, obviously, given that previously we were under the impression that we can conclude until the end of March. So the 26th of March is thus then the final date by when you can complete the viewing of the respective sessions. Members, are there any other resolutions? That is all the feedback I have from my side. If none, members, then with that, the meeting is so adjourned. Thank you so much for your participation today. Goodbye.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you, voorzitter.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Dankie en baie geluk.